Sure tells us that a sign is made up of a signifier, which is the word we see on the page or the screen, or that we hear someone say or say ourselves, and a signified, which is the notion the word or image stands for. This relationship is arbitrary. If it was natural, we would have the same words for things in all languages. So sure use the example of the word tree and the notion it conjures up, so we'll use that too. If the relationship between the signifier and the signified was natural, how would we explain that speakers of English use the word tree, speakers of French use arbre, speakers of German use Baum, speakers of Polish use drzewo, and speakers of Irish use kran? On the other hand though, if we just used whatever words we wanted to for things, chaos would ensue. So there is a conventional relationship between words and concepts that societies agree on over time. Charles Sanders Peirce, here he is, advises us to differentiate between three different types of sign on the basis of the different relationship between the signifier and what it signifies. The first type of sign he talks about is an icon. The relationship between signifier and signified in an icon is one of similarity. You might have heard of icon in a religious sense. The Eastern Orthodox Church uses representations of important people in their religion and calls these icons. The basic reason why these are called icons is simply because they are pictures. They are similar to the actual person they are based on. In the same way, a photograph of anyone is an icon because it looks similar to the person without actually being the person. Note that an icon can be any person at all. We'll come back to that. The second sign type that Peirce talked about was an index. With an index, the relationship between signifier and signified is one of pointing towards. For example, an effect pointing towards a cause. Consider these three signs. A windsock indexes how strong the wind is and which direction it's blowing in. The temperature showing on a thermometer points towards something in whatever it is taking the temperature of. So if it is taking the temperature of a person, anything above or below normal body temperature indexes illness of some kind. And now let's consider the third image. Footprints are an index of someone having walked on that area. They are a trace of them, if you like. The third type of sign that Peirce talks about is a symbol. With a symbol, the relationship is one purely of convention. You might be thinking, oh, that's what Saussure said. Absolutely, because languages are made up of systems of symbols. It might seem strange trying to think of your own language as symbols, but think about Chinese characters or Egyptian hieroglyphs or runes. They are easier to see as symbols, and if you think about it, any language works in the same way as they do. Consider these three signs. They are all logos for brands in some sense or another. I'm sure you recognise the Ulster University logo and the Nike logo. Do you recognise the other one? It's for the UK Labour Party. With all of these, a decision has been made, sometimes at great cost by working with a branding team, to decide on a symbol that would best represent the brand. It's been agreed upon and has thus become a convention. I want you to do a wee in-video task to see if you can identify icons, indexes and symbols. You're going to see 5 different images. Pause the video on each and note down whether you think it's an icon, index or symbol. And if you think there's more than one sign type represented in any of them, note that down too. In some cases there is. So, how did you get on? Let's start with this photo of Audrey Hepburn. Did you say it was an icon? If so, great, give yourself a round of applause. Yay! However, I want you to stop and think about why you said this was an icon. It's not an icon because it's a famous person. It's simply an icon because it's a photograph of a person. Remember, it could be any person at all and still be an icon. This can get a bit confusing because in common parlance we use the word icon to refer to some extremely famous and well-regarded celebrities. Just hold that thought for now and I'll come back to it. Did any of you say anything else about this image? The image as a whole is an icon, as we've said, but there is some indexical stuff going on here too. The diamonds and the cigarette holder and the long gloves index affluence, don't they? You're very unlikely to have these items if you're working class. Well, unless you bought them in a charity shop. Furthermore, the cigarette holder and the long gloves index a certain period in history. We know we're somewhere in the early part of the 20th century. And Hepburn's slight smile is an index of contentment. Did any of you mention symbolism in this image? We could, at a push, say that the fact that the photograph is black and white symbolises nostalgia for a former time. I mean, when the photo was taken in the first place, that wouldn't have been symbolic because all photography was black and white. However, when a black and white photographic image is chosen these days, or when we choose to take the photo in black and white, it is a conscious choice to symbolise a former time. This has only become possible because of its contrast with colour photography. We'll come back to that in another of the videos. So there was plenty to say about that one little image, wasn't there? What about the Dove logo? If you said it was a symbol, again, give yourself a round of applause. It is a symbol because it's a logo. All logos are symbols, as we discovered earlier in the video, because the fact that the sign represents a brand has been agreed upon as a convention by the company. Is that all that's going on here, though? What about the actual image of the dove under the writing? It's iconic, isn't it? It is similar to an actual dove. This is important to recognise. An image doesn't have to be hugely similar to the actual thing to be an icon. It doesn't have to be a photograph or a detailed representation. It can just be a simple but recognisable shape. And of course, logos are symbolic in two directions, if you like. They symbolise the brand itself, of course, but many logos additionally use signs that are already symbolic of something. In this case, we have a dove, which can symbolise peace, but also, probably more relevant in this case, purity. So again, there's more going on than we might initially think. What did you say about the UK Conservative Party logo? Again, it's a symbol purely because it is a logo, a conventional representation of a brand. This reminds us again that we can think about brands quite broadly on this module. For your later assignment of exploring the development of a brand in groups, you don't have to stick to brands for products. If you preferred, you could think about political parties or campaign groups or venues or anything else that you think can be considered a brand. Just check with us first. Okay, back to the Tory party logo. Just like the dove one, there's another symbol within the bigger symbol, isn't there? They have included the UK flag. All flags are symbols too, conventionally agreed upon representations of countries. There's also an icon there in the vague representation of a tree. It's very interesting actually that the party changed their logo to containing the flag within the tree. They initially changed it to just a green tree. Here is that one. I certainly thought this was a strange representation for the Tory party. On a really basic level, the colours were wrong, and on a higher level, it put me in mind of the Green Party. I think the Tories were trying to suggest the tree as representing groundedness, growth and staying power. Perhaps they were also trying to shift to appeal to those who care about the environment. In a way, though, they had shifted too far. Do you think that this new logo works? It would seem to contain everything they were trying to represent, but some might think the flag jars too much with the tree. What do you think? Moving on, what did you say about this sign? The heart is a symbol of love, isn't it? Can we say anything else about it? This kind of representation of a heart is iconic of an actual heart, isn't it? Initially you might disagree because it looks quite different from an actual heart, but there are striking similarities in colour and even in shape with two clear sides to the heart. Again, this is a good reminder that the relationship of similarity that makes something an icon can be very tight indeed, or it can be a lot looser, as long as there is some element of similarity. Now, what did you say about this sign? It's a heart too, so we can say similar things about it to what we said about the previous sign. But there's more going on with this one, isn't there? Do you recognise it as a brand logo? It's the logo of the British Heart Foundation. So, like the Dove logo, it's symbolic in two ways. It's symbolic of the organisation and it's symbolic of life. Isn't it interesting that in this context we don't really consider it to be symbolic of love? This is a reminder that syntagmatic choices affect the meaning we assign to each of the signs. Because of the context this image is in, and because of the other things that are going on in the image, we think of life here rather than love. Did you say anything about the heartbeat representation going out from the heart, if you like? On one level, it is iconic of a heart monitor display. On another level, it's indexical of the fact that the heart it's connected to is beating and therefore healthy. Again, there's a lot going on for such a simple logo, isn't there? Now, let's look at a few adverts. Can you recognise any icons, indexes and/or symbols in these? What are their effects? This may be more complex than you expect. Again, why not pause the video on each one and make some notes about your thoughts? A couple of these are ads we've considered before in relation to other concepts. As I've said before, it's good to consider the same ad in relation to multiple concepts in order to build up a rich analysis of it, which is exactly what you're doing with your own ad choices as well. So, how did you get on? The Maltesers ad has two icons, the Maltesers pack and the single Malteser. They are iconic because they are simple photographic representations. The single Malteser, because of the way it is syntagmatically placed with the halo, is additionally part of an iconic representation of an angel, and an angel in turn is a symbol of goodness and divinity. You might also want to comment on colour symbolism here. Red can symbolise many things, and which of these it's felt to symbolise in any one image depends on the context and the paradigmatic and syntagmatic choices made within the image. In this case, you're probably thinking some sort of mixture between danger, passion and joy, which also fits with the angelic representation to provide us with actually quite a complex message about the fact that we tend to associate chocolate with being bad, but with Maltesers it can be associated with being extremely good. Remember to bear in mind that some colour symbolism is culturally specific. What colours mean may depend on where the image was produced and may be read differently by people from different cultural backgrounds. Our Dove ad also has lots going on for such a simple image. We have icons of women and zoomed in on icons of rough and smooth skin. Did you also notice indexes? All three women are smiling broadly and these smiles are indexical of happiness. Do you notice also the sheen on their skin? This is not an accident. The ad has no doubt been shot and lit this way in order to index healthy, well moisturised skin. Did you notice any symbols? We could say that the poses of the women are symbolic. Think about the fact that we call different bodily stances and poses body language. Languages are symbolic, as we've learned, and in the same way we can say that conventionally recognised gestures and poses are also symbolic. The poses we see here are symbolic of openness, confidence, body contentment, and a little bit of flirtation or sexiness. And what about colour symbolism? All three women are wrapped in white towels, and we could see the white as symbolising purity. Now, what about the Tiffany ad? What did you say about it? This one could definitely be seen as the most complex in terms of signs of the three ads that we've looked at. First of all, let's identify the icons. There are icons of the two men, an iconic representation of the outside of a home, and icons of the rings. What about indexes? Again, both men are smiling, and this is indexical of happiness. They are touching one another, and this is indexical of a close relationship. And we could argue that there is effort made here to have the rings seem also identical of being a couple, with the way they're placed next to each other. We could say that both the clothes the men are wearing and what we see of the exterior of their home indexes affluence, if we recognise it as a traditional brownstone home in somewhere such as New York or Boston. The shadow on the rings indexes that they have been spotlit from above. And what about symbols? I wonder if, like me, you recognised symbolism in some of the signs we have already identified as iconic or indexical. A reminder that a sign can be simultaneously two or even three of these, depending on the context and what is around them. The gazes of the men are not coincidental. The gaze of the man on the right could be viewed as symbolic. He is looking into the distance, which can be symbolic of looking to the future. Coupled with his smile, we can say he is looking positively to the future. Thinking again about the brownstone home, we can say that it indexes the men's affluence precisely because we recognise it as a symbol of affluence, because of the way such homes and the people and stories around them are represented in popular culture, such as films and TV dramas. We said earlier that the rings looked spotlit, and we know that a spotlight, because of the way it is used in theatre, symbolises fame or celebrity. Overall, these signs present a message of this brand as one that stands out from the rest and is associated with happiness, love and affluence. It's amazing how complex messages are, or how simple yet multiply reinforced they are when we deconstruct them, isn't it? Now, let's think about whether we can extrapolate anything general from what we have seen in these three adverts. How close an image is to its referent is important for meaning making in the media. Icons give the person or thing they refer to more status or importance in the context. They therefore draw our attention to the product itself. Think about how luxury brands often simply present a picture of a product in their print ads. They feel the representation and the brand speak for themselves in a way. Indexes illustrate the use value of a product by showing what it can achieve in a cause and effect sense. In the Dove ad, we saw clearly that the product smooths skin, and the Tiffany ad suggested that the product in a more abstract way caused love and happiness. As an aside, indexes are also useful to create suspense. Think about the footprints we looked at. There could be suspense built around whose footprints they were. Symbols can relate the product to more abstract concepts of identity and lifestyle. Think about the purity and divinity in the Dove and Maltesers ads, and the affluence and fame in the Tiffany ad. Now, to finish off this exploration of signs, I'd like you to try this in-video task. It will help you apply the ideas in a more complex and creative way. Have fun with it.